The Republican primary for U.S. Senate, and some recent polls have shown the race between incumbent John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton is tightening. While we are still 6 months away from the March 3rd primary, one poll that received a lot of attention is the one from Texas Southern University and YouGov this month. It shows Paxton leading Cornyn by 5 percentage points, 44 to 39%. 17% said they are unsure. I spoke with Senator Cornyn in Dallas last week about how he thinks he can beat Paxton and the one poll that troubled him.
There was a poll result that I guess Colin Allred released a couple of days ago showing that he would likely win against a Ken Paxton Republican nominee for Senate. We haven't elected a Democrat in 30 years in Texas, and we shouldn't start now.
So is that your message to Republican primary voters, many of them grassroots conservatives who favor Paxton? Is that your message to them? Be careful who you vote for?
Well, I think that's part of the message, certainly, but I think ultimately, Jack, I think, this is a test of character and whether character still matters. What I hear from the Paxton camp is that all of the problems he's had, all the self-inflicted damage he's inflicted on himself, that's all baked in the cake and that people don't care. I believe that character does still matter, and I believe I've demonstrated I can be trusted and that I have been effective on behalf of the state of Texas. It's too important, this job's too important to send somebody up there who basically wants to become a part of the performance artists in Washington, D.C., who want to be famous, they want to raise money, they want to get the most clicks on social media, but they don't really want to do the hard work. I've demonstrated that I am willing to do the hard work, and I enjoy it. And Texas deserves effective representation.
When you listen to all the analysts, they say, because the grassroots conservatives who are most apt to go out and vote in the primary favor Paxton, that you've got to really bring in a lot more Republicans, a lot more people into the primary. And so how do you intend to do that?
Well, I think while there is certainly some support for the Attorney General out there based on this perception that he is some sort of MAGA warrior and that he is favored even by President Trump. But I know President Trump well. I've worked with him closely for a number of years now, and I know what he really cares about is his agenda and what he got elected on. So it is early, as you point out, but we've already seen that the polls have moved closer together based on just some very simple messaging based on my voting record supporting President Trump. And now it's essentially a dead heat. We knew this was going to be a competitive election all along, but it does matter to your question about who shows up at the polls. And I've been encouraging as many people as I can to vote, because with a low turnout election, if we nominate somebody who's unelectable in the general election, Republicans and the state will be harmed the most.
You spoke about character before and the importance of it, and on social media just the other day you responded to Ken Paxton's post on X about the new state law on posting a copy of the 10 Commandments in each classroom. And you said, might want to brush up on the 10 Commandments, Ken. What did you mean by that, and which of the commandments were you referring to?
All 10 of them. I think this is indicative of the hypocrisy that we've seen from the Attorney General, who pretends to be something he's not. And I think we've been reminded time and time again, from the impeachment, from the indictment, that for securities fraud, to the whistleblower lawsuit, and what he's done to his own family, that he is self-destructive, he's reckless, and he can't be trusted. And so that was the thrust of that.
What do you say to conservatives who were upset with the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which you really led after Uvalde? And I've heard some conservatives, and they characterize this as this bill incentivizing states to pass red flag laws. And so they were upset about that.
Well, Jack, I'm a conservative. I got a conservative record, and frankly, in that bill, we didn't do anything about red flag laws. Texas doesn't have one, but what we did make sure is the funding that was available to states that did have red flag laws was also available to Texas for crisis intervention, for training more school counselors, for hardening our schools, and providing for the single largest investment in community-based mental health care in American history, without infringing on the rights of a single law-abiding citizen. And you may have noticed that the Texas legislature actually followed our lead on the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and extended background checks for mental health commitments and criminal records to 16-year-olds, which is basically the thrust of what the bill did. But it's not a good answer to these parents who lost their innocent children that we don't care and we're not going to do anything. I'm proud of what we were able to do because I believe it saved lives and will continue to save lives.
I want to ask you about some headlines. Obviously, national attention over these new congressional maps here in the state of Texas. And what did you make of all this?
Well, I know that redistricting is one of the most contentious, most political acts that can be performed by a legislature. And it's very personal to members of the legislature because you're redrawing the lines they've run in. Their relationship with their constituents is maybe disrupted or changed. But Texas has changed over time. It's become more Republican. President Trump has made significant inroads into the Hispanic community, which I've always reached out to. These are folks who are culturally conservative. They should be Republicans, but they found a welcome home with President Trump, and now they deserve to be counted in the way these districts are drawn. But as you know, these will always end up in litigation, and so now the El Paso Federal Court is going to be considering this. There's a lot of moving parts here, both factually and legally, but I'm confident these seats will be upheld.
I once again requested an interview with the Attorney General, but his campaign did not respond to my request. In the Democratic primary, former North Texas Congressman and former Senate candidate Colin Allred has jumped into the race along with astronaut Terry Virts. Former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, current Congressman Joaquin Castro, and State Representative James Tallarico are all considering entering the primary. The same Texas Southern University YouGov poll found O'Rourke leading Allred by 20 percentage points, 58 to 38%. And a quick update on the Republican primary for Attorney General. We told you last week that Central Texas Congressman Chip Roy jumped into the race. He was endorsed by Senator Ted Cruz. Another candidate, Aaron Reitz, won Paxton's endorsement.